This is B2Bold, the podcast for B2B marketers and industry players who think differently and lead boldly. I'm Hayley Dole, and each episode I chat with boundary-pushing marketers about what it really takes to grow a brand in today's world. Hello, today I'm excited to welcome Lexi Walker, Senior Regional Marketing Director at Thomson Reuters. With over 20 years of experience shaping brand strategy, leading account-based marketing, and driving large-scale events and partnerships across corporate, financial services, education, and non-profit sectors. Lexi is a visionary leader shaping the future of global marketing. At Thomson Reuters, she specializes in AI adoption and B2B marketing workflows and campaigns, helping teams integrate AI-driven solutions to accelerate growth, deepen client engagement, and deliver measurable results. She's passionate about transforming traditional marketing into dynamic data-driven strategies that connect brand, technology, and executive influence. In this episode, we explore adopting the AI mindset, building collaborative pathways to AI-driven marketing. Lexi shares how AI is changing the way we think about marketing and team culture. She also dives into practical ways to bring AI into campaigns and how close collaboration with internal teams and external partners can turn those ideas into real results. Welcome, Lexi. It's lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you, Hayley, and thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. We've got a great topic today. So you've led marketing transformation across different industries throughout your career. Now that AI is entering the picture, how do you see it changing the nature of marketing transformation, and what will this mean for strategy and execution?
Yeah, it's a lot. To be honest, I think to really understand the shift at AI is driving, I think it's always good to kind of look back to where marketing was and then look forward. And I'm sad to say, but I was around when the era of fax machine campaigns were out and about, where you literally sent a promotional message and a list of fax numbers and hoped that someone read it. From there, I saw the .com boom come through, and suddenly we had websites, digital storefronts. We changed a lot in the way that we thought about visibility. And then, when you fast forward to social media and digital advertising, we've entered a phase where channels have multiplied and data's exploded. Marketers have become masters of targeting and automation. But I think the real standout for AI is those were channels. And so when we're thinking about the ways that we need to reach our future customers, AI is not a channel, it's a function. And it's increasingly part of the buyer. Think about how we use our iPhones today. We don't just use them, just to make phone calls. They're actually there to shape what we consume, helps us make our decisions. We're very much engaged, and AI is 100% the same flow through. AI is becoming embedded in the buyer journey. It's influencing the content that gets surfaced. It recommends what's happening for the buyer. And more importantly, it even more so helps make the decisions for them. And you think about how you're asking questions now on Gemini or your Copilot, you're looking for answers, and AI is delivering on that. So when we talk about marketing transformation in the age of AI, we're not tweaking tactics. We're rethinking the entire approach. Strategy has to become more predictive. Execution, it has to be more adaptive. And the measurements of what we need for marketing, they need to be metrics that aren't just about impressions, but more about dynamic indicators like contextual relevance, and engagement of time. And then when we're also thinking about what this means for marketers everywhere, it means we have to evolve. So instead of building linear journeys, we're designing responsive ecosystems. And instead of pushing messages, we need to be training our modules to understand intent and delivery. And I think through our conversation today, you'll hear me talk a lot about intent, because I think that that's necessary so that we're not measuring in just isolation, but we're looking for ways to be findable for our buyers. Does campaign messaging fit the moment? Well, it would need to, when we're thinking about the changes and the impact that AI is having on, how we're transforming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that intent piece is really important. I think, making sure up front that we're really thinking through how we're using AI and plugging it into our processes so that it's delivering value rather than just we're doing it for AI's sake. So, when we talk about adopting an AI mindset in marketing teams, what does that really mean in practice? Is it a technology shift, a culture shift, or a bit of both?
Oh, it's everything, to be honest. Adopting the mindset, it's probably one of the most important shifts that are happening within marketing teams today. And I think what's really important, and it's got to resonate for everyone, it's not a fixed destination. It's not like you have a mindset that's going to allow you to problem solve differently or be more agile in your ways of working. AI is forcing us to be more fluid, and it's helping with, ensuring that we have an evolution in our state of thinking. So constantly evolving daily, constantly evolving with application. I think at its core, the AI mindset is really about curiosity, adaptability, definitely a willingness to rethink how we work. I also think it's important that it's, a factor of it's not just plugging in new tools. This is not a system like Microsoft, workflows or Excel or anything like that. It's about shaping how we approach problems and how we collaborate. And more importantly, how we define success. And that's like absolutely mission critical for marketers. It is a technology shift, so to speak, but it's very much a cultural shift. And I'd further say that it's very much a creative shift as well. So, as we're entering this new stage of AI adoptions, marketers are no longer just operators of systems. We are becoming builders, architects, I'd like to think of us as. We're designing AI workflows, we're doing training modules, but we're shaping how the data is flowing through our campaigns. And I think that that's important for us to recognize. That's probably the first step in building that mindset shift and creating an infrastructure. But from there, you go from stage one to stage two, which is building the second phase. So it's creation in motion and creating new types of campaigns that respond well in real time. I think that's what's going to differentiate many businesses from their competitors is being able to create customer experiences that feel intuitive. They've got to be predictive and deeply personal for the buyer. And more importantly, that would then mean that we've got to create new KPIs, we've got to have new analytic frameworks, and we've got to go beyond impression. So it's literally like resetting the brain, so to speak, or the framework as marketing as we know it. And what's truly unique about this moment is we as marketers are not building an infrastructure for future marketers or for graduates, down the line. We're actually creating systems and processes that are impacting us in real time today. So we're building and using these systems simultaneously, and it's a live transformation. So, as I said, the mindset has to be fluid. You have to embrace ambiguity. There's got to be iteration at all times. If you're not iterating, if you're comfortable, there's a problem because, your competitors will outwork you. And you've got to remember that it is deeply collaborative. No one team can own AI. It's got to touch marketing, operations, IT, data, more importantly, your leadership. The most successful teams that I've seen are the ones who treat AI not as a tool, but as a co-creator. And sometimes that evolves with them, but it's evolving with them, but not just something that they deploy. So ultimately, the AI mindset is about seeing possibility, not just in what we can automate, but what we can imagine. And I think that's truly where the magic happens.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well said. Yeah, that mindset thing is so important because it can be a real blocker and even just getting started. But yeah, having that open mind and that curiosity is definitely a really good approach, especially with eliminating fear as well. I think because I think a lot of
Mhm.
people would probably because it is so new and unexplored.
100%.
Yeah, just to try and put that fear aside and jump in and start experimenting. So, AI adoption often requires cross functional collaboration, like you were just talking about, and buy in from leadership. How do you foster that collaboration between marketing, IT, and vendor partners to build momentum around AI initiatives?
It's a big question. I'm very lucky. I always gush anytime I speak. I talk about how I really truly believe I work for one of the best corporations at the right time as well. We've been incredibly fortunate at Thomson Reuters. We've had a strong top-down support of AI adoption, and it has made a huge difference in how we've quickly and confidently moved about to kind of get this kind of implemented. I think it was about 3 years ago, our CEO, Steve Hasker, he made a really bold and clear announcement about the fact that we were entering into this AI era. And the focus for us was to be defined by AI innovation and transformation. Our company's been around for 150 years. So that was a pretty big deal to have, executive leadership saying that. But it was that kind of leadership signal, it mattered for us, and it set the tone across the entire organization. We've got some 28,000 team members globally, and it gave us the permission to explore, experiment. And I love the fact that our business invested in new ways of working. With that implementation, as you can imagine, there's no fun without rules. So we have a really fantastic head of AI governance, Carter Corsino. So she's based in the US, or sorry, in Canada rather. She created what I like to call a safe passage for all of us. So she created sandboxes and kind of really defined the rules on how we would use data. And we all know as marketers, there's lots of data to go around, and your AI implementation is only as good as the data that you put into it and the interpretations that you put about it. So having those frameworks helped us kind of balance our innovation, which then kind of gave us free reign to kind of play. From there, our team, we took the baton and we kind of ran with it. So we started aligning our shared outcomes, not just within our business, but within our ops team. We have a data team as well that we refer to as commercial excellence, and more importantly, our vendor partners. And I think that that's probably the biggest takeaway for many of your listeners or viewers is the fact that your pathway to AI adoption, once you've set the parameters within your organization, you need to then turn to your vendor partners, and you need to ask them, what are the problems that they can help you solve? And how can the AI integrations that they have help you move better and faster? And there's a formula on why I propose that. I say this because you touched on it yourself, Haley. Anything new invokes fear. And so if a team member is, just getting confidence using a particular MarTech platform or solution, that confidence sometimes becomes marred by not having access to all of the information or not being able to kind of move in what they feel is fast enough. That is always puts you on kind of the fringe of the ability to adopt well or the ability to not adopt well. So having your vendors kind of engaged in the process and creating that co-design in the solution, it allows for the teams to have a co-collaborated ownership and energy. And I think what's important as well is when you lean heavily on your vendor partners, what will end up happening is they have the shared goal. So that means that it opens up the ranking for things like pilots. They can help you design into better integrations or even have you with a tailored solution. So it doesn't mean that you have to go out and get all of the bells and whistles, but if you have a definitive plan, you have a really clear governance model, and you're working to go after a very distinct defined framework, all of those facets can help you cross-functionally achieve a lot more momentum. And then you'll realize that it's, about building trust and a shared purpose. And that's what kind of really makes things more transformative.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I really like what you're saying about co-design from the outset. So bringing the teams together across the business and your external partners as well to bring all the thinking together and make sure that it's really collaborative and everyone's on board together from the beginning. And so many marketers are curious about AI but unsure where to start. What are some practical ways you've helped your teams or peers move from that experimentation to meaningful integration?
Meaningful integration. That is a subjective term, meaningful integration. I think a lot of teams start out really ambitious, and that's you set yourself up to climb Mount Everest, and you don't have a clear directive, and you fail along the way. So I think it's the key is that adoption of anything new, especially something as transformative of AI, it starts with curiosity, and curiosity is always like that small little thing, like what's that over there, and how does that work? So it's really kind of working at a way of turning curiosity into play. And I think that's what we've always believed in, creating those sandbox environments I've touched on earlier. Teams need that to explore without fear. They need to be able to test, and they need to be able to have, a fun environment. So you see a lot of growth right now in hackathons. And I notice a lot of marketers are like, oh, that's for the prompt engineers or that's for the techies. And it's like, no, 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 we can create our own hackathons as well. And a hackathon is really just trying to find ways to navigate and solve problems. And I think that at our organization, we made our intentions and our decisions very clear early on. We quickly defined what AI platforms were in for us, what we felt was compliant and secure, and more importantly, what aligned with our values. And I think every company can start to sound like everyone else if they're applying AI. But if you're smart about it and you align your business values to what you want to do with the AI, you have that level of authenticity. So clarity is key. And I think that's what gave our teams the confidence to experiment and explore and safe boundaries. It helps us avoid that paralysis that comes from uncertainty. And you're seeing that a lot. A lot of my colleagues will go, well, we started on it, but we haven't really got there yet in other organizations. So I think it's important to kind of do that. And as I said, once those guardrails are in place, you can turn attention to your pain points. Think about where you're spending too much time. Where can AI help you move faster or smarter? These were the questions that we asked. And then I think once those areas have been tackled, like thinking about, for example, ad creation, that was a big one for us. So we went from ad creation externally. We have multiple countries and languages that are part of my portfolio. So our speed to market was very waterfall. You know, you'd have one market out open after the other. I think the great part was, though, that having AI, it allowed us to bring that entire process in house. We were then able to kind of go, that's definitively what we want to fix. We layered generative AI over that. And sure enough, it helped us unlock both cost savings, but creative control. So that iteration of constantly dealing with your external vendor to get what you want it to be just right, we could do all of that internally and faster, which was really cool. We've also looked at translations and localizations, which are big, huge expenditures for a lot of other marketing organizations more broadly, especially if you have, as I said, multiple markets. So I'm giving you these ideas just for your viewers to kind of say, you know, AI, it really allowed us to maintain the voice of our brand. It allowed us to adopt for content in terms of all of those regions more efficiently and better than ever before. I think it's important for people to get, though, it's not just a time saver. It's not just something you use to create content. It's a brand enhancer. And you'll need that when you're kind of exploring your findability in AI. But at the end of the day, it helps you ensure that, you know, you're compliant. So yeah, I think that's, you know, I could go on with all of the different platforms that we use, but I think what's exciting is how the enhancements that we're now feeding into our broader workflows and discoveries, they allow us that speed to market. As I said, continuity and messaging and our voice of customer are just kind of really the benchmarks of what we need to do. So if I'd sum it up, I'd say start with play, set clear rules and solve your problems, and then share what you learned. Share, because I think that's how experimentation becomes integration, and that's how teams can move from curious to confident.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think that with AI, that curiosity and experimentation is never going to go away. So we just need to get comfortable with it.
100%.
Yeah. So you've mentioned vendor and partner collaboration as a growth driver. Can you share how strategic partnerships have helped Thomson Reuters accelerate AI adoption or mindset growth across regions?
Yeah, our MarTech vendors have been absolutely critical to our AI adoption. We have our own systems internally. So as I touched on earlier, like we have a phenomenal intranet system that allows us to have our MarTech stack built into sandboxes, so that kind of gets the training. But for our vendors, they were our first point of contact once we identified the pain points that we wanted to help us solve. I think that a lot of marketers, one of the biggest misconceptions I hear, especially from marketers in small and large organizations, is that adopting AI requires like a massive budget or complete tech overhaul. And we may be a very large company, we have a very itty-tiny marketing budget. So the reality is that AI that's already embedded in many of the tools that you're using every day, whether it's HubSpot for scheduled personalized emails or Hootsuite is one we use for media automation. Meltwater is a great one for customer sentiment and analysis. These are the vendors that we work with. Eloqua, I think that's the benchmark of everything we do that helps us with that campaign performance. All of those AI components, when we were ready, were already there working behind the scenes. So instead of starting from scratch, we started by asking our existing vendors, what are your capabilities that are already available and how could we activate them to support our goals? And I think that's a simple question that needs to be asked and opened up for every opportunity for anything new, whether it's AI or other. Always turn to them because it's your buying power, right? You want to really leverage your marketing spend. But our vendor partners, they've become collaborators. So they've helped us map capabilities. They've given us use cases as well, which is really great. If you need to push forward a business case, work with your vendor to help you write that business case and give examples, particularly of the competitors that are also using the same implementation to get that across the board. But so some I think which are really fantastic is they'll offer pilot programs, and I think that's the game changer. Pilots have allowed us to test AI features in a controlled environment. we demonstrated very quickly, and we've built business cases to get further investment in that kind of realm. It's incredibly helpful when you're navigating those budget conversations because you're not asking for funding based on theory. You're actually showing real savings and impact. So I think also another benefit of tapping into AI through existing platforms and vendors is that it removes the fear factor, which I touched on earlier. Your teams know it already, so it allows them to kind of unlock what they need. But strategic partnerships, I think it's key in terms of helping you get your movement or your ideation around AI off the ground, and kind of then allows you to enhance your tech stack across your regions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important just to, yeah, reiterate that you're not in it alone. And, a lot of us already have a really robust MarTech stack. And a lot of that has some of those AI functionality built into it. So it's important to kind of do that assessment alongside your partners before moving forward. So AI brings enormous data potential, but also new challenges around trust and interpretation. How
Mm.
do you ensure that data driven decisions still align with brand strategy and human judgment?
Yeah. This is going to shock a lot of people, but we treat data as a guide. It is not gospel, and I think that's a definite shift. Back in the day, meaning last year before AI, we really looked at Excel spreadsheet and would say, "Oh, this is the outcome," or "This is that." But you now have an interface, so I think treat it as a guide, not gospel. AI can surface insights, but it's our job to interpret them through the lens of our brand values or customer empathy, and I think that's where the human judgment becomes essential. So for those marketers that are fearing you'll be replaced by AI, you can't, because you really need to be part of that human context. And I think we see AI as a strategic partner, and I think every business has to do the same. It's a strategic partner, not a decision maker. It will bring data, yes, but we bring the context, as I said, and that means not just asking about what's trending, but does this align with what we are trying to do for our business, and more importantly, for what our customers need right now. So, like I said, at TR, we built governance frameworks that ensure transparency. So we have, ethical use within our marketing capacity. And I think that's important because there's a lot of amazing AI tools that are out there, but you have to ask yourself, is the images that you're using from AI actually reflective of the environment that you're putting it out there? Are you marketing in the right way? Cosmetic companies need to be thinking about that. Are you creating beauty in a way that is no longer sustainable? So it's looking at all of those different avenues, and tweaking your governance framework and being ethical in your use and aligning it to your brand promise. Otherwise, you'll lose your customers. And I think that's important for everyone to know. But I think that thanks to the work of our AI governance team, we have very clear principles on how we use AI, either from campaign targeting to actually our content solutions. And I think that these principles have to be embedded in frameworks in order for it to work. But we've made space for that human review. I think that that's mission critical, as I said. And whether it's validating sentiment in our analysis for our customers or refining our messaging, you can do it quickly with AI, but we always apply a brand lens before anything goes live. And I think that's especially important, as I said, where that cultural nuances and tone can make or break your campaign. But ultimately, yeah, AI does help you move faster and smarter, but it's the people, the marketing teams, the leaders that, ensure we stay authentic and relevant and trusted. And the partnership between data and judgment is just, that's what's going to keep your brand strong.
Yeah, I think that's a really important perspective to have because AI pulls from data, but making sure
Mm.
that we've still got those human led insights and applying context and, yeah, the ethics around what it is we're doing. So you've worked with senior executives globally. What advice do you have for marketing leaders who are trying to bring their teams along on the AI journey, especially in more traditional or risk adverse organizations?
Yeah, there's a lot of risk adversity going on right now, but I think my most important piece of advice that I'd ask kind of everyone to take away again is know your audience. AI adoption, it's not a one size fits all story. It's a narrative. So every stakeholder needs to be the star of the version that you're going to tell of that narrative. Your CFO doesn't want to hear about campaign channel planning or email personalization. They want to know how AI is going to be able to drive efficiency or reduce spend, and more importantly, support their financial objectives that they've made to the board. your CEO, for example, they're focused on market share. So they want to know, what's the competitive advantage? How can AI help the company be the first to the buyer? And then above all, we work hand in glove with sales. So your heads of sales, they want to understand, how is AI going to influence the buyer decision making? And how is it going to position your brand or our brand as the obvious choice? So when you're bringing people along the AI journey, I think, you've got to be able to speak their language, frame AI as a solution for their specific challenges, and show them how it supports their goals. And most importantly, make them that hero. So not just a stakeholder, but, a protagonist in the transformation. At TR, we found that storytelling is one of the most powerful tools in this process. So we use real examples, we have pilot results, as I've said, get customer feedback. I think voice of customer is key to kind of build like not just the integrity, but credibility and spark imagination. And we don't just talk about what AI can do. I think from a marketing team, we show what it's already doing, and then kind of ask for, hey, we've done this, we want to expand, we require more to do that. But I think alongside the storytelling, we maintain a strong foundation of governance and control. And I keep saying that because it's important. That is mitigation of brand risk, aligns with that risk adversity that you're seeing from your stakeholders. It's new. They do not want to have a new piece of technology kind of take them out. And I think all of us have recently seen one of the big four being fined quite readily for, a white paper where they thought, let's use this new piece of technology. It's actually impacted the most important aspect of their brand. So you've got to be really clear about, transparency and how you're using AI builds trust with your stakeholders and your customers. And that trust will unlock kind of the momentum you're looking for. So, as I said, we use it to create a safe space for experimentation, but leaders, they also need to model the curiosity. So, when engaging with them and making that protagonist, tell that story about how, curious they were and how they supported learning, and they made teams kind of feel empowered. And more importantly, there's going to be mistakes. So there's got to be a way for us to move quickly from fear. That's one of our biggest values at TR, is act fast, learn fast, which, I think everyone should employ. But ultimately bring your stakeholder team along the AI journey. Remember, it's about vision and empathy and clarity. It's about showing people where they're going and why it matters to them, not to marketing per se. And again, like I said, how are they going to fit into the story to be an advocate, to encourage the adoption or whatever it is that you want to do? Because it's important that we change within every organization. AI is not a buzzword. It's actually just, part of the mission and what we're trying to achieve. And it's part of our day to day.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I guess that's the flip side to, being fearful and not getting started and being blocked, is like the other side is running ahead blindly and rushing into
Yeah.
things. Yeah, like you're saying, those frameworks and that government governance around everything is really, really important. So wrapping up with our final question, what is one bold idea you would love to try with AI workflows if there were no limits?
My goodness, I love, like, as you said, I'm very passionate. And I think what I'm about to say, people will probably like worry, oh my goodness, she's thinking of a way to replace us. But I think that from marketing, we went from design to market to buy, and there was very limited connectivity. So my absolute dream right now, and I'm studying for it, is I want to build like a real time AI powered campaign engine. And I'm sure as I've given out this idea, some like 15-year-old or, CMO has quickly gotten their 15-year-old to kind of design it. But I think creating a AI-powered campaign engine that is listening to the audience signals across channels. So that, your socials, your search, your email, your web, and then dynamically adapting messaging and creative all in one go. Imagine having a campaign production that's not static, but is actually living. So it actually evolves based on your customers. So think about the customer that you got today, and then you're designing, a real life, real time campaign for them that kind of goes on their business journey. So as they kind of outline their annual report, you're creating a campaign that definitively aligns with that. So that's probably my biggest dream of unlimited use of AI. I'm sure there's some components in there about social listening that we'd have to kind of adhere to, but it's an engine. And I think that, eventually having something like that as a dream, or just using AI in general, it's not just there to automate tasks. It's there for you to kind of orchestrate really incredible experiences. And it's really to get that buyer understanding. So the intent, it gets you to adjust that tone. So you don't constantly sound like everyone else that I touched on. And, you'll eventually have an AI platform that is like your strategist, your creative director, and your data analyst all together working 24/7. So I think that would be my dream.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds exciting. But yeah, a lot of connectivity across a lot of different platforms. So, but I think that's kind of where we're going with AI when it comes to marketing. So thank
100%.
you so much, Lexi. You've been an amazing guest, and I think
Thank
we've
you for
covered
having me.
so much in today's session. It has been really, really great.
Excellent. Thanks again so much, Haley. All the best.